document that we will present today is a summary of both studies that Aina mentioned. These are two different studies that we carried out mid-2022. So the data, the real data is closing 2021, and we have some early 2022 data with complementary objectives. On one hand, we have the EU Kids Industry Market Research, where we try to offer a comprehensive and aggregated view of the European children's industry by focusing on 7 key countries that represent the whole of the region, and in order to understand the potential of the offer and give visibility to strengths and any business opportunities that are arising in the region. And then we have a complementary qualitative study, which we call the Worldwide Kids Trend Study, that provides information on international trends and helps us identify opportunities by aligning to future consumers' needs and how these needs are evolving and changing. First, we will talk about the introduction of the study, and then we'll go into detail into some of the sectors, and I will explain in detail as we approach these sections. Regarding the scope of the study includes detailed analysis for 7 European countries that were selected because they can provide an interesting and representative sample of the European market. We try to cover the different geographical areas to account for economic differences and cultural differences. So for the Southern Europe, we have Spain, France, and Italy. For Central and Nordic countries, we have Denmark and German data, and also we have some representation of Eastern Europe with Poland and Slovakia. Just a general note that affects the whole of the interpretation of the study. We have to take into account that some of this might seem very obvious, but it's worth mentioning as we begin. Most European countries, and such as the ones we have analyzed, they have aged populations with relatively low birth and fertility rates. So this puts into context the data that we're seeing. Especially Italy, Germany, and Spain have significantly older population. And while Germany has the largest population out of the countries analyzed, France has slightly more children than Germany. The average birth rate for the region is 9.1%, with 1.5, just over 1.5 children per woman, with the highest birth rates in France and Denmark, and the lowest birth rates in Italy and Spain. What we're seeing is that with parents and starting families later in their life and having less children, this has transformed all family dynamics with new attitudes, new roles, new priorities, and this creates, of course, a whole new landscape of needs and opportunities for products and services across the industry. So these are the different sectors that we have included in the scope with qualitative and quantitative information to study the potential at European level. For the first 3 sectors, which are games and toys and child clothing, basically for these 2, we have very detailed data that allows us to have a very comprehensive quantitative analysis. For children's food, we have analyzed those foods included for children under 3 years old. Of course, children eat more than just baby or toddler food, but it still gives us some insight. And for the entertainment and leisure industries, education and childcare products, we don't have complete aggregate data, but we have analyzed different studies that complement each other in order to come up with some quantitative conclusions that are quite, nevertheless quite interesting. So first, some general conclusions. Sorry, just a second. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. This is the we have Europe 50, which would be the whole European continent, and the comparison of the 7 countries analyzed. So in regards of revenue for key sectors, the 7 countries analyzed are 40% of the Europe 50. So we think it's a significant portion that we have analyzed. So the conclusions are easy to be able to extrapolate and to identify trends. And if we compare to the compound average growth rate expected for the 2020 and to 2022 period, we see that the countries analyzed just grow just a bit under the overall of the European Union. So once again, it's quite a representative sample of countries. The largest sectors in the countries that we have analyzed are clothes, which represent 22 billion of revenue in 2021, and followed very closely by the toy sector, which is the other largest one with 21.8. And if we look at the countries, the ones with the highest revenue for the all kids category, where we have comparable data, are Germany and France, where I mentioned before, have the largest population, and also in the case of France, the largest population of children. Here we can see the comparison with the sectors analyzed. Like as I mentioned, food is only accounting for the specific baby and toddler food. So that's why it's much smaller. In comparison, in the case of childcare, we're only focusing on skincare, which is a very specific subsector of childcare. That's why it's so small. But we can see how these compare in terms of revenue and also in terms of CAC. And here we can see the revenue per country for all the sectors and the countries with the highest revenues. The sectors with the highest revenues for each country. Here, the share of the total revenue per sector and country, we can see some differences. For example, with the predominance of clothing in Italy, which is a very important sector there, more balanced in other countries, toys being a bit bigger than other sectors in Germany, some interesting differences. And then now we will start the analysis of the specific sectors in detail. In the case of the European toy market, Europe is the third region in sales behind North America and Asia. The 7 countries that we analyzed represent almost 40% of the overall European toys market in 2021. So once again, a representative, interesting sample. Regarding the most attractive markets, if we look at consumption, Germany and France have the largest markets, but the German and Denmark toys markets are larger, with an above average revenue per child in the region. If we're looking at growth, the most attractive markets in this case are Poland, Germany, and Slovakia, with the largest expected growth for the period analyzed. Whereas we see that some markets, such as the French market, are actually expected to decrease. Regarding more qualitative aspects of the data analyzed, we're seeing that gaming is becoming a very key subcategory within the whole gaming industry, with the highest volume of sales across the countries coming from this category, video games consoles, meaning that gaming has become a key subcategory within the industry with a very high average price and with very interesting growth. We're seeing that there are gamers of all ages, but if we're looking at play and data, play information, children are still a significant consumer segment for video games, with up to 73% of games still considered suitable for kids under 12. And we find studies that find that 70% of kids between 6 and 8 and 80% of those in the next age range 10 to 14 play video games. Other interesting categories in the toy sector, they differ a bit from country to country, but mainly we always find in the top categories plastic toys, toys for toddlers, construction sets, dolls, and stuffed toys among the classics. Regarding digitalization, although most toys are sold offline through large retailer department stores and specialized toy stores, we find that toy shoppers have become increasingly more digital, often combining purchases in both channels. So it's kind of an omni-channel customer experience. All the European markets have shown a significant growth in online sales that has been significantly accelerated, like many industries, in 2022 due to the COVID crisis. But currently we find that 1 in every 4 toys in Europe is sold online. The countries with the highest percentage of online toy shoppers are France and Germany, with just over 30% or around 30%. And then we find that countries who are lagging a bit behind with this adoption of online toy purchase are Italy, Poland, and Spain. Online sales grew by 19% in the region due to COVID, but some countries experienced incredible growth in this channel, especially Spain with a 75% increase, or Italy with a 37%. The other large sector that we have analyzed is children's clothing. The European children's clothing in Europe 50 represented 50 billion euros in 2021, with a 1.4% CAGR for the 2018 to 2023 period. This is a high value and a growing market. And the 7 countries that we analyzed represented 44% of the overall European children's market. In the countries analyzed, the most attractive markets were, in terms of revenue, Germany, Italy, and France. The size of the Italian market and of the Danish market were especially significant, especially in comparison to their population, with a higher revenue per capita or per child that is much higher than the average in the region. So 2 strong markets in this category. And the most attractive markets per expected growth are Slovakia and Poland, with the largest CAGR, while the Spanish and Italian markets were actually expected to decrease. We're finding on a qualitative level, changing needs and attitudes in this market. We're seeing price points that are consistently growing in the last few years across different product categories within the clothes industry in most of the analyzed markets except Poland. What we're seeing is manufacturers and new brands increasingly focusing on quality in order to compete in what has become a very competitive fast fashion market. We also see the entrance of new shopping habits and new channels, as we mentioned with toys, with a significant growth in online sales. Of course, it was already quite a significant online purchase sector, but it was also accelerated significantly due to the COVID crisis. Currently, we find that 30% of children's clothes sales in Europe are already online purchases, which is the highest percentage in all the kids categories. The countries with the highest percentage of online clothes shoppers, kids shoppers, are France and Germany. And we're seeing that online sales grew overall 23% in the region. But once again, some countries experienced very significant growth, like Slovakia, Spain, or Poland. And also we're finding new consumer demands related to sustainability and eco-conscious values that are also impacting the market, with the share of sustainable apparel, a growing subcategory, which already represents 5.4% of the market, with figures that are similar across the different countries analyzed. For children's food, we analyzed specific foods aimed at children under 3 years old. Of course, it's very hard to disaggregate data of overall food consumption by families to that is only specific for children. So we have to look at the data for babies and toddlers in order to have this overview. The European children's food market is smaller in comparison to the other categories we analyzed, but it has been shown significant growth in the last few years that is expected to continue. The 7 countries that we analyzed represent around a third of the overall European children's food market, with France being the most attractive market per consumption in terms of revenue, and with a higher revenue per child too, and also some countries that stand out with a high expected growth, especially Slovakia and Poland. Here we also see changing needs and attitudes in the data. We see that there's a significant growth in online sales across the region, which also accelerated due to the COVID crisis, although the share of online channels regarding food products is still small compared to other categories. Food purchases are still very much done in physical shops. Currently, we find that around 3.2% of children's food sales in Europe are online, but there is a very high expected growth for the current period, with just over 19% CAGR. The highest percentage of online children's food shoppers are in Germany, France, and Spain. And we're seeing that across the region, this channel grew 30%. Also, we're seeing new consumer demands influencing the types of products and the category, especially around sustainable and eco-conscious values, and translating into an increased focus on health that grows demand for products that are minimally processed, nutritionally varied food, and incorporating some interesting trends such as superfoods or growth in plant-based ingredients. For the entertainment and leisure categories, of course, this is a very, very large category that comprises very different sub categories. So in order to be able to analyze, we focused on some specific subcategories. In this case, we focused on audiovisual or TV consumption. And we have a comparison between traditional TV and home video, so the revenue of traditional TV and home video compared to streaming services. Once again, just a reminder that this is about revenue, it's not about audiences. So we're not talking about uses here, but the actual business models and markets. So generic TV is still a significantly larger market in Europe compared to streaming video on demand services, which is 10 times smaller. But if we look at the growth, we see that streaming is growing over 10%, while traditional TV and home video is slowly decreasing. We find similarities across the region. We see that the leading streaming platform is Netflix across the region, with some differences in who is in the second place, depending on the country. And with a lot of the revenue from traditional TV and home video in most countries is still coming from advertising, with some countries having strong models based on subscription for traditional TV, such as cable, where this is still very relevant. Regarding education and publishing, we also don't have aggregate data that can be compared from country for country, but we were able to analyze in depth, and in the study, these details are included, different studies regarding the publishing industry, and specifically children's and youth aimed publishing. What we can gather from this analysis is the publishing industry seems to be growing in most European markets, and the categories aimed at children are showing special growth. As we can gather from the different countries, from the different studies belonging to different countries. We see that books, nevertheless, seem to still be purchased mainly in specialized physical bookstores, and that despite the competition from screens, regarding consumer behavior, reading is still a relatively common habit for many children and young people. Regarding childcare products, we were not able to have complete data that is comparable for all the childcare categories, which include very different things, but we have a small focus on the kids skincare sector that can allow us to have some insight into how these childcare categories might be behaving. Of course, this is much smaller in comparison to the other sectors that we analyzed, because they were large sectors and this is just a subcategory, but we do see that it shows a steady growth in the last few years that is expected to continue. France, once again, had the largest market in terms of revenue, and a market that is comparatively quite significant is Slovakia, showing an average revenue per child that was twice as high as the average for the countries analyzed. And other countries, and we're seeing that the countries that we analyzed are growing almost 1 point above the whole of the European region. So an interesting opportunity in the selected countries. So after the quantitative study, we have a qualitative study to complement the insights from the first. This is an index that I will jump ahead. Okay. First of all, this study, the study scope, in this case, the study is worldwide. We carried it out based on trends and case studies at the global level in order to be able to find trends that can be identified and have influence across all regions. So when we identify trends, we try to find case studies that link each trend and show its existence in practical examples across the 3 large geographical blocks: the Americas, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and also Asia. So for each trend, we're seeing case studies in each region, making sure that all the trends that we have analyzed are really global. So the starting point for this analysis, we started with some macro trends at the business, market, and technological level that are transforming our reality to identify which are the 4 greatest areas of impact for the kids industries and the family audiences. So first we have digitalization. with all the new technological developments that are making it possible to increase value of products and services, that are also inviting parents and families to connect and interact. We have a big sustainability macro trend, everything related to consumer awareness of the climate crisis and the new demands that this is leading to, and the new concerns that require companies to take action. We have well-being as a big macro trend, related to the confidence and security and safety and peace of mind that parents and families need when they are parenting, to protect their health and the overall well-being of their families with solutions that are tailored to their lifestyle and their values. And then we have, Then we have inclusion, with inclusive design of products and services that ensure their attractiveness for everyone, regardless of their origin or their identity. What we did is, in order to identify how these macro trends were impacting the kids industries, we identified the key sectors that were being impacted, by each macro trend, in order to identify where the impact was more significant. So in the case of digitalization, for example, we talked about, we saw its impact in childcare, in education, in games. In the case of sustainability, in games and toys, in childcare and in child clothing, very important there. And in the case of well-being, in child food, once again, entertainment, and also childcare. And finally, everything regarding inclusion and its impact in education, in child clothing, and in games and toys. It doesn't mean that these macro trends are not also impacting the other sectors, but we tried to identify the sectors where it was more prevalent, or where this impact could be shown more clearly, and trying also to have a wide range of sectors represented in the analysis. So this is just a wheel with all the macro trends crossed with the sectors and the trends that are coming out of each crossing. We're not going to get into details, but just so you can see the richness of the document, which has case studies for each crossing. The titles are the different micro trends or cases identified, and you can see them in the full document, which will be shared with you. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the 4 macro trends and how these translate into trends, so you can have a bit of a feel of what's included in the study and on the main conclusions. First, we have the digitalization macro trend, which relates to this new profile of connected and smart parents and families. We've seen how digitalization has already significantly transformed everyone's, and of course also families' lives, and opened new horizons to children's play and learning through infinite possibilities, thanks to interactive and connected toys and also digitalized educational solutions. So here we can see the examples on the top right, with value propositions like this Osmo game that merges physical and virtual play at the same time, or also merging digitality and physicality in education or in entertainment with augmented reality books, in this case an Asian case study. We're also seeing how advanced digital technologies are also impacting especially product-based categories, with Internet of Things, wearables, AI, bringing an enormous opportunity to add intelligence to childcare products and services, to increase convenience, always important for families, to increase safety, always important for families, and also increase their value and their effectivity. Here we have an example of an American smart cradle with a sleep monitoring solution. And then we're also finding that digitalization is also impacting kid categories through social digital platforms that enable opportunities to develop services connecting families into family communities, which at the same time empower them and help them to socialize, to share knowledge, to share resources, or to exchange goods and services, as we will see in future cases, creating second markets. And in this case, we have also a European app called Peanut, which is kind of like a Tinder for parents to meet other parents in the similar situation and exchange and socialize. Then regarding sustainability, we're seeing a whole bunch of trends around new demands and new models. With the current climate emergency, of course, sustainability has become one key important value for consumers across markets and industries, and especially for consumers who are also parents, the impact is very significant in regards to their purchases in kids categories, especially for those such as toys or clothes that are categories that generate a lot of waste when children outgrow them, no? Because often clothes, children grow faster than clothes get worn out. So we're seeing new demands that require solutions that are transforming every part of the product cycle, from the decisions in the sourcing of materials to how the manufacturing process is evolving, to packaging, very important impact in packaging, to what happens when a product is still usable, but it's no longer needed. And then we're also finding, driven by digitalization, as I mentioned in the previous slide, these local and global digital communities that are enabling re-commerce opportunities in the kids sectors, effectively elevating the social idea of hand-me-downs and of parenting groups, which have always existed informally, into a whole circular economy that is based on peer-to-peer business. So we're seeing interesting things in the clothes industry with different value propositions, such as this one by an American brand, which are clothes that grow with children. So clothes can adapt to different sizes and last longer, generating less waste. We're seeing careful selection of materials for sustainability and safety reasons, such as plastic-free bottle range by Philips. We're seeing toys being reinvented using new eco materials, such as these Asian really classic figurine toys being re-edited, made with completely different materials. And we're seeing, as mentioned, a lot of circular economy peer-to-peer platforms to exchange toys, games, clothes, such as Kidizen, which is a second-hand kids clothes marketplace in America. We're seeing a lot of similar case studies across the 3 regions. Regarding peace of mind and well-being of families. So the peace of mind of our families is a universal concern for humanity across millenniums. And of course, it's still today in the 21st century at the top of parents' priorities. But we are finding that changing lifestyles are raising newer worries, such as those that relate to unsafe or excessive use of technology, or toxic and unsafe products, or anything that can in close contact with children affecting their health. For example, the having lived through a pandemic, so health, the concern for health for parents now is higher than maybe previous generations. And also we're finding that the current generation of millennial parents that live in the context of a rapidly changing world, that have lived through successive economical, social, environmental, and as mentioned, health crises. The concept of children's well-being is increasingly seen through a holistic perspective. So concerns include everything from needing peace of mind about their health and nutrition, worrying about their personal development, their self-expression. Also very important, and it's going to come into sharp focus in the next few years, mental well-being and overall happiness of our children. We're seeing here how trends also intersect with smart digital solutions that are allowing families to monitor what's going on with their children, and also another intersection with a previous trend with new sustainable and safer products that answer to these needs for physical well-being, and also inclusive education and playful value that guarantee that no child is left behind. So more of this mental and self-expressive well-being. So we're seeing things like such as yoga and mindfulness aimed at children, with a very popular European program that was a huge boom during the pandemic. We're seeing lots of application of this trend to food products. With example, this is an example of an Asian organic food brand that is aimed at preventing allergies. We're seeing a lot of safety with childcare, especially for the first few years of children's lives with sterilizers. This is an example of a portable sterilizer. And we're seeing also how digitalization is entering into the well-being trend with interesting propositions such as this one, which is a activity camp for children in the US, which merges real sports with esports in order to attract children who are interested in playing esports on their video games consoles, but also combining this virtual play with actual physical play. So for part of the activity, they play, for example, basketball on a console, and then the rest of the afternoon, they actually play basketball, getting children to move more and be physically healthier, while still attracting them with things that are interesting to them, such as esports. And then finally, we have all the macro trend relating to inclusivity. This is very correlated with the fact that the concept of what constitutes a traditional family has been completely transformed in the last few decades. And this, of course, in turn has transformed expectations, roles within families, behaviors, and the discourses that keep evolving around identity and the growing acceptance of lifestyles that diverge from the norm. Has resulted in new social values, so that the concept of the normal family is something that has completely been shattered, and these new social values are transmitted from parents to their children. So families have increasingly high expectations on brands and on their products and on their services to be able to guarantee the inclusivity and representation that they feel is just, and to help them educate and raise their children with these values of empathy and promoting equality. So they're having higher demands in this regard for any products and brands, especially across the categories that we will see. Once again, there's an intersection here with digitalization, which enables access for everyone and allows for and makes personalization easier. So it makes it possible for education, for care and leisure propositions that better adapt to every child and every family's specific needs. We're seeing things across the publishing industry with more diversity in books being published. We're seeing more diversity in toys with dolls, that especially in the dolls category, very interesting things around representation. This is a European brand. We're seeing also this inclusivity and equality in the clothes sector with gender neutral clothing, or not so clear and not so divisive lines between clothes that are for girls and boys, and a lot of gender neutral value propositions. And we're also seeing cultural diversity with interesting propositions such as dolls that transmit, in this case, Indian traditions. What we have seen when we analyze looking for global trends is that we have indeed been able to find trends that we can say are global, because we have found examples of these trends being applied across all the regions. But it's true that this is a result of the fact that consumer demands for families have become more global. As the world becomes more interconnected, cultural differences regarding child rearing are becoming less and less significant, because information travels globally. So there's kind of like a community of parents that are similar to communities of parents in other countries, rather than to non-parents within the same country. Still, we do have to mention that we have seen some slight differences that are mainly related to how these specific sectors and the market maturity of a specific sector differ across countries. So, for example, we're finding that in a tech-forward region such as America, everything related to digitalization trends being applied to kids categories such as toys, such as educational products, are more mature. So we're finding more mature value propositions in this market. In Europe, we're seeing that all the eco-conscious value propositions are very significant. So we're seeing that these trends are especially driven by many local small brands that have very innovative concepts around sustainable clothing, sustainable toys, new sustainable and more eco-conscious food propositions. And some of these brands and cases have become regional and even global phenomena, with some of them going from a regional level to the whole European or even global, becoming global brands. Meanwhile, in Asia, we're seeing that everything related to telecom and device-based products and services, which are mature markets there, are better represented in the kids categories across all the different trends. But in summary, what we're seeing is we're seeing have it all family consumer that will not compromise on their values and expectations, that demands products and services, value propositions that are fun, playful, and experiential, very important aspects for everything related to kids, and in an era where experiences are king. Also, very importantly, solutions that are convenient that can be fit into their busy lives. Very important, that are safe, that are caring, that are trustworthy, because peace of mind is a key pillar of family demands, that are accessible for everyone, that are adapted to specific needs, always with an educational aspect, with everything regarding children. Educational aspects are very important, and without compromising on design and quality. So that would be all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the presentation.